Hello, hello. We are back for Burnoutology, our first one of September, first day of September. We're back, we're ready. So today, most coaches think they're helping, but they're actually accelerating collapse. And today, in today's live, I'm going to tell you the number one mistake that almost every coach makes with burnout clients. And we're going to talk about how to stop causing harm that we can't even see. All right, that's where we are today. So welcome to Burnoutology Live. If you are new here, I'm Kelly Swingler, founder of the Burnout Academy. And for over a decade, I have been training and coaching leaders, coaches, and organizations around the world on burnout awareness. My mission, I say it's quite simple, really, right? But my mission is to banish burnout and to stop well-meaning coaches and leaders from making burnout worse. That's what we're going to do, right? We're going to end burnout. We're going to create this ripple effect. We're going to end burnout. And as far as I'm concerned, burnout ends with awareness. So this is all about awareness. If you are joining me live, let me know in the comments where you are. I don't know if we've got comments. I don't know if we've got comments working. But yeah, if you're joining me live, say hi, let me know that you're there. Also, kind of let me know where you're from. And also let me know that you can hear me okay. Some of you, for those of you that are kind of regulars with my weekly lives, you may have noticed that we've also got a little bit of a new home. We've got a new little office space, but at the same time, I've also got some building work that is going on. So you might hear some background noise, but we're going to go with it anyway. It was one of these, do I postpone today? Do I not postpone today? We're going to go with it. I thought, first day back, we've got to go with it, right? We've got to go with it. I can see some of your comments coming through. Hi. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Hello, everybody. Okay, so let's start. I've got some questions for you. You know, I love to start with some questions for all of you, right? So I want to know when, and these are just for you, you don't have to worry about sharing any of these comments. I'm going to be with you today to maybe kind of 20 minutes, 25 minutes. We're not going to go huge, but I did want to get into the habit. Hey, Sarah. She's waving hi. Hi. From just outside of Worcester. My very good friend David is Worcester. Sarah is one of the Burnout Academy alumni. So it's always lovely to see her. It's always lovely to see everybody, whoever it is that wants to join me, right? If you're going to give up some of your time to come and spend some time with me, always very, very grateful. I've had loads of phone calls already today. I've had 4 phone calls already this morning with people that are talking, want to talk about joining me in the Burnout Academy. So for either the Master Burnout Coach or for the 2-day Burnout Awareness Training. So already first day back, I've just had nearly kind of 3 weeks off to try and get my body in the right place. We've got 5 weeks now until the operation, everybody. 5 weeks to go. We're on countdown, but I have just taken a couple of weeks off. I was hoping to ease the pain and to be able to get myself in a really, really great place. I've just done loads of stuff around the house. Hence, my new little space, my new little office that I'm going to share with all of you. So let's start. As I said, I've got some questions for you. It is probably going to be one of those, isn't it? It's the first live I've done for a while. It's the first live in my new little office. So it's first live with not new tech, but newly positioned tech, wanting to make sure that all of that is working. It's first Monday of September. It's a new month. It's back to school vibes. It's also then probably going to be one of these lives where I just go off on a tangent everywhere. So some of you are probably all like that, switched off. Not doing any of that. But let's start with some questions for you. So, as I said, you don't need to be sharing these, but I just want you to have a think about it. Okay. So when a client tells you that they're exhausted, I want to know what your first instinct is. All right. So as I said, you don't need to be sharing any of this stuff with me, but I want to know what your first instinct is. So if somebody comes to you and says to you that they're exhausted, is your first instinct to tell them that they need rest? Is it to tell them that they need better boundaries? Is it something to do with time management? Is it something else? But have a think about, if the client first tells you that they are exhausted, what is your first instinct? I also want you to then have a think about how many of you have then gone straight into solutions mode, right? Solutions mode with a client that you have suspected might be at burnout. And it's not to say that there's anything necessarily wrong with this. I trained and qualified. A lot of the therapies that I trained in were solution focused. My executive coaching qualification was about being solution focused. So if you've gone straight into solutions mode, right, with a client that you suspected might be at burnout, probably because that's what we were trained to do, right? We've been told and trained and taught and conditioned that we need to automatically stay in solutions mode. But I also have you ever had a client who does everything that you suggest between sessions, like literally everything, and yet nothing changes for them? So there's kind of 3 questions I just want you to start with, right? What's your first instinct if a client tells you that they are exhausted? How many of you have gone straight into solutions mode with a client who you suspect might be at burnout? And have you ever had a client who has done literally everything you suggest, everything that comes up in a coaching session, they keep doing, and yet nothing actually changes? If you have got anything you want to share in the chat, share it in the chat. If you've got questions as we go through, ask your questions. I like these lives to be as interactive as possible, but there was some little questions that I wanted to kind of just get you thinking about before we go into this session today. So the number one mistake that so many coaches make when coaching burnout, right? The number one mistake that coaches make with burnout clients is this. They keep coaching performance instead of recognizing burnout. Well, that's obvious, right? Because again, as coaches, a lot of what we're trained for is to move people forwards in terms of performance, right? We might not necessarily call ourselves a performance coach, but for the majority of us, we are teaching, we are training, we are coaching. And what we get taught in the training and the teaching and the coaching that we do, right? It's about goals. It's about moving people forwards. It's about promotion and performance and goal setting and achieving goals and moving forwards. And again, if like me, you were trained as a solution focused anything, then it's all about performance. So you're coaching goals, you're coaching actions, you're coaching boundaries, you're coaching values and vision, purpose, their why, all of that stuff. But if your client is at burnout, then their body and brain can't actually integrate or sustain any of the changes. Again, those of you that have already trained with me in the Burnout Academy, right, we know there is actual neuroscience about what's going on within our brain, right? Why we push ourselves to the point of burnout in the first place, and also what we need to be doing differently to get our brain into the right space in order to be coachable when we get to this point. Right? So what looks like progress in the session, because you are coaching goals and actions and boundaries and values and vision and performance and all of that sort of stuff, what looks like progress in the session is often about collapse in between sessions. Right? It's often looks like collapse in between sessions. Bruce says, if they're burned out, what makes a coach think they should recommend action? Well, okay, Bruce. So if the client is at burnout, why would the coach recommend action? Because again, this is another thing, right? We've got another live on this coming up in a while. But actually, for a lot of it, burnout can really, really hide in plain sight. Burnout can hide in plain sight. And this is why burnout awareness for coaches is something that I'm so passionate about, because burnout doesn't always look like burnout. Burnout isn't always about clients coming to sessions and saying how exhausted they are. Burnout isn't always looking like collapse. Sometimes burnout looks like performance. And if we don't know what we're looking for and we don't know how to spot it, we're going to continue to coach the performance. Right. So again, we've got this distinction. Burnout doesn't always look like burnout. And a lot of the time, what we think is burnout. And again, I hear this from lots of coaches all the time. Lots of coaches are telling me, well, it's easy to spot burnout. Actually, it's not. It's really not easy to spot it. And a lot of the time, the closer that clients get to burnout, the less likely it will be that coaches are able to spot it, because it doesn't look like burnout. It doesn't look like collapse. It doesn't look like exhaustion. It looks like somebody that is high performing, that is getting loads of stuff done, that is vigilant and is wanting to strive and do a really, really great job. And that's why so many coaches will still keep coaching performance. That's why they will still keep recommending actions. That's why they will still keep doing all of that stuff. I once worked with a leader who came to me, right, saying she wanted help with boundaries. Now, again, lots of you might be coaching around boundaries, right? I need better boundaries. So on the surface, again, right, she was doing everything right. She'd blocked out a diary. She'd said no to new projects. She was journaling every night. She was taking care of herself. But again, in between sessions, she was still firefighting. She was waking up at 3 a.m. She was dissociating in meetings. She was dissociating for her own body. And again, if I had kept coaching her around boundaries, I would have missed the fact that she was in full burnout. What she needed wasn't another strategy. She didn't need more time management. She didn't need more support around boundaries. It was for me to recognize what was going on, to get her to then slow down, to get her to, to find ways to help her to reconnect with her body and recognize that she wasn't lazy or unmotivated. She was on the brink of burnout. And again, a really big distinction here: as coaches, we are not here to diagnose. Right. I've trained doctors and therapists and counselors and workers within the NHS. I've trained professors. I've trained people in universities. Right. I've done lots and lots of this stuff. I am not able, nor would I want to diagnose anybody at burnout. And again, this is a really important distinction for coaches, because a lot of coaches think, oh, I know how to spot burnout, and we're going to say to a client, I think you're at burnout. Just seen Katerina in the chat, right? If Katerina comes to me, to coach, I'm like, oh, Katerina, you're at burnout. Not my job to say, not my role to say, not my morals or ethics or anything for me to say that anybody else is at burnout. We're not here to diagnose, but what we can do as coaches is spot the signs and ensure that we are using the correct tools, the correct techniques, the correct questioning, that we recognize when to get our clients to slow down. When we recognize that it's not about performance or getting people to move forward, it is about the slowdown. It's about reconnecting to the body. Recognizing all of these signs, coaching differently in order to help our clients to move forwards. So why is this mistake so common, right? Well, this is why it's so common. As I said in the introduction, right? We are trained as coaches to look for solutions, not to look for symptoms. Burnout can hide in plain sight. Clients, right, will show up. They'll nod, they'll smile, they'll do the work, they'll tell you how committed they are, right? Even if we double check with them, do you think, how committed are you to these actions? What do you think you're going to do? When will you have it done by? Right, I'm going to do this thing by this date, by this time. How will I know? Well, because I'm going to let you know. Right, they'll do all of that within the sessions. But a lot of coaches will then mistake compliance for capacity. And this is the bit that we're not getting trained as coaches, right? We're not being made aware of this stuff. Is that a client that is at burnout, they will do the journaling, the action plans, the checklists. They will not want to disappoint you as their coach. They'll tell you that they're doing all of the things. This is what we said at the start of this session, right? A lot of this stuff, the coaches will do all of the things, but they're not actually getting any progress. And it's because all they're doing is doing more. Doing the journaling, doing the reflections, doing the action plans, doing the checklists. And yet they're doing it in survival mode. So their nervous system is fried. You're pushing for growth, and yet their body and their brain is stuck in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And you keep going. And then they come to the next session and they'll go, yeah, I did all the stuff, but I'm still not moving forward. So you try maybe a different coaching framework, a different coaching tool, right? Let's try a different model. Let's kind of do whatever. But actually, a lot of the time when we're not seeing this progress, it's because sometimes a lot of what we are seeing is actually masking. Again, I talk a lot about the kind of difference between, or what I was doing between my burnout number 1 and my burnout number 2, right? Burnout number 1 made me really, really seriously ill. Second one nearly killed me. And in between 1 and 2, I'd done a lot of learning. I had like it's like a well-being list, like a self-care list, right? Because I'd done a lot of training. Hadn't necessarily touched on a lot of the neuroscience at the time, which is something I'm hugely passionate about now. It plays a huge part in what I do within the academy. But I'd done a lot of other training. I wanted to understand what this thing called stress was. I wanted to understand what this thing called burnout was. Nobody was really talking about burnout back in kind of 2013. But the more that I kept trying to learn, like I thought I knew what self-care and well-being looked like. And I thought that if I just did all of these things on a daily basis, then I wouldn't end up where I'd just come from. So I had a list. Now I say about kind of 15 things. I'm sure there were more than those things on it, right? But I needed to be in bed at a certain time. I needed to wake up at a certain time. I needed a certain amount of water, certain amount of food, certain amount of protein, certain amount of movement, certain amount of weights, certain amount of journaling every day, meditation every day, yoga, walking, time outside, blah, 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 blah. Kept doing all of the stuff. And my second burnout didn't just make me really seriously ill. My second one quite literally nearly killed me. But that client example that I've just given you, I was doing all of the doing. It wasn't making any difference because I wasn't embodying any of it. It was just more things to do on a tick list. And so often, if we are prescribing self-care activities for our clients, if they are on the brink of burnout or if they're at burnout, do a bit of journaling, do a bit of reflection, spend some time outside, do this, do that, do this. They'll do the thing, but it's not having an impact. It's not having a positive impact. It's not making the slightest bit of difference because actually it's just another thing that they need to add to their to-do list, right? It's not helping anybody, but it's just another thing. And they'll keep doing the thing because they want to please you as their coach. And part of, again, the closer that we get to burnout, our perfectionist tendencies, we've just got to keep going because we don't want anybody to spot that we might be failing. We don't want anybody to notice that we might be starting to, drop a few of the plates that we're spinning. So we keep doing. And there is that saying, isn't there, right? If you want something doing, give it, if you want something doing, give it to a busy person. But actually, if you want something doing, give it to somebody on the brink of burnout because they're going to do it because there's going to be so much masking and so much pressure and so much pushing and so much perfection and so much fear and so much driving them. And their entire nervous system is going to be in this fight, flight, freeze, fawn. They're just going to keep going until they crash. So if you're giving them a list of things to do, they are going to keep going. So when you keep pushing for action as their coach, you're not helping them to recover. You're accelerating their collapse. Because if you are treating burnout like a motivation problem, when really it's a systemic, somatic, neurological problem, then that is the hidden harm. Right? You can have all the empathy and good intentions in the world, but if you don't fully know how to recognize burnout, then you are coaching the wrong thing. And again, a lot of clients that come to join me in the Burnout Academy, like, I know burnout, right? Because I've lived it. So I know what I'm looking for. But actually, again, they don't because they didn't really understand their own burnout in the first place. So again, what we think is burnout very often isn't. But if we're mistaking performance, or we're mistaking burnout for performance, then we're doing more harm. If we're not spotting burnout and we're still pushing for goals and progress, then we can be doing more harm. So another coach that I worked with shared that they'd had like a client who'd ghosted them, right, after about 3 sessions. And this client that coach that I was talking to at first thought that their client just wasn't very committed, right? But when we looked deeper, the client, seemingly from what the coach had said to me, had actually been masking burnouts. They'd been doing everything to please the coach, but her nervous system was in total overdrive. So again, the coach had been pushing for goals, which only added pressure, but the client then didn't come back, not because the client didn't want coaching, but because it didn't feel safe. It felt unsafe to keep performing. And again, that's the hidden harm. Right? Burnout clients won't say, this coaching isn't right for me. I'm not getting what I want from it. They will just disappear. You just won't hear back from them. And you might be talking, if you have coaching supervision, if you're in, the Academy alumni and you're kind of talking to me about it, any of those, but client just ghosted me. It was the client's fault. But again, a lot of the time, it's just because as coaches, we're not spotting it. And the client may not necessarily be able to name burnout, but they'll know that just keep doing more isn't what they need. So I want to keep this as short as I can. I can talk about this stuff forever, can't I? But I want you to think about your own coaching practice, right? It's a little bit of reflection here. So we started with some reflective questions. I've got a few more questions for you. So think about your own coaching practice, right? Have you ever celebrated a client's breakthrough in a session only to have them ghost you the next week, right? So you've celebrated this big breakthrough and then next week they just don't come back for a session. You think, what's going on there? Or you had a client who looked back to normal, but deep down you just knew that something wasn't landing. Again, it could be burnout compliance, right? It looks like progress, but it's actual survival. So think if you've ever had any of those sorts of situations with your own clients. Okay, so what do we need to do instead? Right? What do we need to do instead? Again, if you've got questions, pop them in the chat. We know that I can keep talking. For those of you that have been here a while, you'll know that I can just keep going and going and going. But if you have questions that you would like, please do pop them in the chat. So what do we need to do instead? So first step, absolutely. And I started with this, but the first step is awareness, right? We need to learn to spot the signs. We also need to know when we need to stop coaching goals, right? When the nervous system, when the person in front of us just isn't ready. We need to recognize when progress isn't progress, it's masking. Burnout aware coaching means understanding what's really happening in the body and in the brain. It means changing the pace. It means changing the questions. It means changing the interventions. It means creating safety before strategy. And this is what most coach training completely misses. This is why I'm kind of on a mission, right? To ensure that all coaching is burnout aware. Most coach training misses all of this because a lot of coaches, a lot of coach training, a lot of the education, the understanding and awareness that we see out there about burnout treats burnout like it is just stress, or that it's about workload, or that it's about not having enough boundaries, instead of recognizing the deeper impact on identity, the body, the nervous system, and the brain. So here's kind of, I suppose, a kind of final truth. If there aren't any questions, I'm just kind of finished with this, and then I'll be back with you again next week, right? But the truth that I want you to take this week, the one thing that I want you to take away really is that you cannot coach burnout clients the same way that you coach high performers. Okay, you cannot coach burnout clients the same way you coach high performers. Again, whilst, nobody is immune to burnout, right? Nobody is immune to burnout. And yet when we look at a lot of the stats, a lot of the information that are out there, a lot of people that are currently at burnout, particularly if we're coaching within corporates, a lot of those people are the high performers within those organizations. So it could be quite likely that we are coaching high performers with using high performance coaching. And yet actually what we're doing is pushing clients closer and closer into burnout. We're pushing them over the edge of it. They're ghosting because we're not able to help them and support them and coach them in the right way. So you cannot coach burnout clients the same way that you coach high performers. If you do, you will be causing more harm without even realizing it. We want to avoid that, right? Ultimately, as coaches, we want to help our clients move forwards. We want to help them to be happy, healthy, high-performing humans, right? So we don't want to be pushing them even further. If you do want to learn more about this is why I have created the Burnout Aware Coach Training, 2-day intensive, where I will show you exactly how to spot burnout in your clients, how to change your approach safely, and how to stop accelerating collapse. The next 2-day training is taking place on the 16th and 17th of September. So if you want to be a coach who doesn't just mean well, but actually helps clients recover and grow, I would love to see you in the 2 days with me. You'll find all of the details at kellyswingler.com. You will also find the Burnout Aware Starter Kit. So if you are, and I'm sure all of the clients that are trained with me already in the Burnout Academy are amazing, amazing coaches. And if you want to be an amazing coach with the burnout awareness, the first step to that, you can get your Burnout Aware Starter Kit. Again, you can access that at kellyswingler.com. But my final line for today, my closing statement, look at me finishing on time, is like genuinely, like, do not be the coach. Please, please, please do not be the coach that unintentionally causes harm, right? Be the coach who sees what others miss. I started with this and I'm going to finish with it. Burnout ends with awareness, and all of that awareness starts with you. If you would like any more details, if you want the link to anything that I've talked about, drop me a DM. I'll quite happily send that to you. Or, as I said, head to kellyswingler.com. But for now, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining. As I said, it's been a while since we did this. I want to get as many of these in as possible. As I said, I've got 5 weeks until my op. I want to get as many of these lives in as I possibly can before then. But we're back, right? We're back for September. Burnoutology Live is back. It's weekly. Thank you very much for joining. Hope you all have an amazing day. Happy September. Happy Monday. I'll be back with you again next Monday. I'm going to say same time, might be a little bit earlier, but I'll be back with you again next Monday, and I will see you soon. Take care for now. Take care, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.